Now the more you do stencil work, or the more you start experimenting with freehand, the better you're going to get. I suggest going out on YouTube and searching some videos about stencil work. My tip's getting a little plugged there. Every once in a while you're going to notice you're going to spit a little bit of something. Might be an indicator that my pressure's a little bit too high. There's certain areas of your stencil that you want to come out a little bit more, put a little bit more paint in it. The closer you work to your surface with an airbrush, the finer your line is going to be. For example, you start tight, slowly start to pull back. Your line is going to get larger and larger. The tighter you start into your work with your gun, the finer your line is going to be. With a dual action airbrush, you can push down for air only and then begin to pull back for material. The more you pull back, of course, the more you're opening this needle, the more material you're going to spray out. I highly suggest practicing once you get your gun, just get some kind of a surface. Start doing some spirals. Practice with your airbrush, get to know it a little bit and see where you're at. You may notice I'm spraying with the cap off too. Once again, you're going to develop your own style with your airbrush once you get it. I'm not shaking all around, spilling paint out of my cup. I've got a nice steady hand. It's just a style that I've developed on my own, which you can do for yourself. Starting to spray a little bit there. I think the eyes on this thing are really important, and the centerpiece here, not so much this area. These are kind of important, so I want to have a nice bright coloring on them. I think one of the most important things to think about is once you get the brush, just start using it. It's starting to get awful foggy in here right now, so I'm going to step out. So far, looks okay. Looks like we have a nice base down for it. And we can take the stencil off and we can start highlighting by freehand. Some of the stuff that I'd like to see little bit brighter in areas. So we'll be back once I pull the stencil off. Okay, we pulled the stencil off, and we do have a little bit of overspray, but that's no big deal. A little bit of overspray that went under the stencil from the stencil lifting up. Even though I was pressing down, you get a little bit of fogging in your black areas. That's no big deal because we can go in freehand now with black. I just washed my gun out because going from white to black, I don't want any white mixing in with my black at all and getting some kind of funky gray color if you want a black background. Put a little bit of reducer. Just to clean it out. Had a little bit of solvent in there, a little thinner. Now we can come in with solid black. This is house color paint again. A little bit goes a long way. Slowly start to fill in. Now it's okay if you come up over your white again, you can always reuse your stencil or you can freehand it in. Okay, so what I did when we had the stencil off, just went back in and kind of touched up with black where I had that little bit of overspray, and I kind of went in and exactly that, just did a little bit of detail work is all. Clean the gun out again, I come back in with white, got the stencil back on. Real easy to get overspray under your stencil, so highly recommend getting some force put down on it with your fingers. Okay, so let's zoom in on it. So now we went back over it again with white after I had filled in the fog areas with black. Got a little bit more definition out of it. This is where I can come in and freehand a little bit with white now, just to bring out a couple little spots here and there. I think that actually looks pretty good for a start. Another reason why you use white is if you come in over white with another color, let's say blue, purple, red, green, yellow, it's going to make that color pop out a little bit more with the white underneath. I think for right now that was probably enough. I could spend hours and hours and hours on this thing. It all depends on how detailed you want to get with your stencil. There are techniques to where you can make stencils not look like you stenciled it, and that's by coming in after the fact and doing some freehand on your edges and kind of soften things up a little bit. You can see how, well, I don't know how well this camera is going to pick it up, but that to me, these edges are really sharp. If you come in and soften these now freehand, it'll kind of take that stencil effect away from it. I'm really not that good at that. Like I said, my airbrush has been limited to maybe 8 months now. I'm still getting better, but I've got some really basic, technique down. I'm just sharing it with you guys, so hope you can learn something from this. That to me is a great foundation to start working now. I'm just going off the top of my head. I don't have a drawing or any colors in mind already, but I can already see that this might lend to some reds, some greens, maybe some purple. We could do some red lenses right here for his mask. Do maybe some red on the exterior here a little bit. Get some purples going down here. Oh yeah, the possibilities are really endless. You could really spend a lot of time on something like this. Yeah, I think right now what I see is these goggle lenses being red. I see maybe a purple and green mixture in here. It's kind of biohazard thing, green. We can do some candy work in here too. Make things really pop out. We could also do some technique to border this. I can show you guys how to do some soft edging technique around here. Maybe in a circle. Yeah, maybe in a nice oval pattern around this. We can use some materials and go and do some soft edging around it just to put in a border. Some kind of a frame, excuse me. Yeah, I think for right now we'll just let that sit, and we'll come back to that in the next one. Okay, thanks.